President Trump signed a new executive order specifically targeting the VA's benefits processing system, with the stated goal of cutting the time it takes veterans to receive decisions on their claims by 50%, half the wait time. That sounds incredible on paper. So, today we're going to dig into what this order actually says, what it could realistically accomplish, and whether this is genuine systemic reform or whether it is political theater dressed up in patriotic language. Stay with me, because by the end of this video you are going to have a clear picture of what is actually on the table for veterans right now, and I am going to give you the information you need to decide for yourself. First, let us talk about the problem this order is trying to solve, because the context here matters enormously. The VA's backlog issue is not new. It is not a partisan issue. It has plagued administrations of both parties for decades. At its worst, the VA benefits backlog has ballooned into hundreds of thousands of pending claims, with some veterans waiting well over a year just to get an initial decision on disability compensation. Think about that. Someone who served their country, came home with injuries or conditions connected to that service, and then had to wait 12, 14, sometimes 18 months or longer, just to hear whether they qualify for the benefits they earned. That is not a bureaucratic inconvenience. For many veterans living with serious disabilities, that delay can mean financial hardship, medical debt, and in the most heartbreaking cases, it can contribute to outcomes none of us want to talk about, but all of us need to acknowledge. The current average processing time has fluctuated, and the VA has made some measurable progress over the years with digitization efforts and staffing increases. But the system remains deeply strained, and the frustration among the veteran community is absolutely justified and well documented. So here comes this executive order. What does it actually direct the VA to do? The order instructs VA leadership to implement operational changes aimed at reducing average benefits processing times, streamlining the evidence-gathering phase of claims, improving coordination between the VA and the Department of Defense to get service records and medical documentation faster, and increasing accountability at the management level for processing timelines. There is also language about leveraging technology, including artificial intelligence tools, to help process and evaluate claims more efficiently. Now here is where things get interesting, and where your skepticism, if you have any, is actually healthy and warranted. Executive orders are powerful, but they have real limits. An executive order can direct agencies to do things differently. It can set goals and timelines. It can shift priorities, but it cannot conjure additional funding out of thin air without congressional appropriation. It cannot instantly train thousands of new claims processors, and it absolutely cannot change the underlying complexity of evaluating service-connected disabilities, which often involves intricate medical evidence, legal standards, and appeals processes that take time by design to protect veterans' rights to a fair hearing. So when you hear 50% reduction in processing time, the honest question to ask is, reduction from what baseline, measured how, and over what time frame? Because there is a massive difference between a genuine structural reform that sustainably gets veterans faster decisions, and a statistical sleight of hand, where you change how you measure wait times or shift resources in ways that create short-term optics without long-term change. Let us talk about some specific provisions that veterans advocates are watching closely. One of the most significant pieces of this order involves technology integration. The VA has been working for years to modernize its claims processing infrastructure, and if this executive order accelerates genuine AI-assisted review of evidence, that could have real, meaningful impact. AI tools have already shown promise in helping identify patterns in medical records and matching them against rating criteria faster than human reviewers working through paper files or even digital documents manually. If the implementation is done right, this is not science fiction. It is a genuine efficiency gain that could benefit real veterans. On the other hand, technology rollouts at the VA have historically been notoriously difficult. The agency's IT modernization history is a cautionary tale about complexity, cost overruns, and timelines that stretch far beyond initial projections. So the optimism about technology has to be paired with realistic expectations about execution. Another provision worth noting is the increased accountability language. The order reportedly includes mechanisms to tie management performance evaluations more directly to processing time outcomes. In theory, this creates incentive alignment. If your career advancement depends partly on your team hitting processing goals, you are going to prioritize hitting those goals. In practice, though, accountability measures in large bureaucracies can sometimes lead to gaming the system rather than genuinely improving it. If you pressure processors to close claims faster without providing the resources or structural support to do so properly, you risk rushed decisions that generate more appeals, which ironically creates more work and longer, ultimate resolution times for veterans. This is the tension at the heart of this executive order, and it is the tension veterans and their advocates need to watch carefully as implementation unfolds. Now, let us bring in some perspective from veteran service organizations, because their reaction has been genuinely mixed, which tells you something important. Some organizations have welcomed the order as a signal of prioritization and expressed cautious optimism that the technology and accountability provisions could yield real results if properly resourced. Others have raised pointed questions about whether the funding mechanisms are in place to support the changes being directed and whether the order adequately protects veterans' rights during a faster review process. Nobody wants faster decisions if faster means more denials that veterans then have to fight through years of appeals to overturn. That last point is critical. Speed without accuracy is not a win for veterans. A claim denied in 30 days that should have been approved is worse for a veteran than a claim that takes 60 days but gets the right answer. Any genuine reform has to hold both goals simultaneously, faster and accurate. Those goals are not mutually exclusive, but achieving both requires investment, training, and sustained commitment that outlasts any single executive order. And if you want the proven roadmap to maximize your VA benefits, join our Veteran Benefits Blueprint private community. The link is in the description below. If the VA receives adequate resources to hire and train claims processors, if the technology integration actually works as intended and gets properly implemented, if the accountability measures genuinely incentivize quality outcomes rather than just speed metrics, and if there is sustained political will to see this through beyond the news cycle, then meaningful progress is achievable. Maybe not 50% in the first year, but real, measurable improvement that veterans can feel in their lives. That would be a genuine win, and it would deserve genuine recognition regardless of which political team is keeping score. So what should you actually do with this information? First, if you are a veteran with a pending claim, keep track of this. Document your wait times. Reach out to your VSO if you have not already, because they can help navigate the system and will be monitoring how these changes actually affect claim timelines. Second, pay attention to the follow-up reporting on this order, not just the initial announcement coverage. The story of whether this works will be told 6 months, 12 months, 2 years from now when we can look at actual processing data. And third, hold your representatives accountable. Executive orders from the White House need congressional support in terms of appropriations and oversight to have lasting impact. Your senators and representatives need to hear from veterans about what actual reform requires. Every single veteran who served this country deserves a VA system that moves with urgency to honor that service. The frustration is real, the need is urgent, and if this executive order delivers even a portion of what it promises, that matters enormously to real people's lives. But wanting something to work and believing it will work are two different things, and veterans have earned the right to demand proof before celebration. Watch this space. The real verdict will come from the data, not the press release.